last time I hit a bench PR was all the way back in April of 2024. I got 355 pounds. But since then, nothing. And the reason for that isn't really lack of proper training. It's been something that honestly nobody really told me about. Unfortunately, something I had to learn the hard way myself, and it set me back actually quite a bit. The first time I hit 2 plates back in late 2020 to 3 plates in summer of 2022, and then my most recent max out a couple years ago, I did a lot of things right with my training. But one specific aspect of recovery I didn't really pay much attention to, and eventually it just kind of caught up to me. I didn't really notice how much of a problem it's become until I decided to max a couple weeks ago to test my strength to see how much I'd lost after my bodybuilding show. So I went to the gym, I loaded up the plates just purely out of curiosity to see where I'm at. After all, I've been focusing a lot on bodybuilding recently and not so much powerlifting, so I knew I wasn't going to be where I was, that's for sure, especially after losing a bunch of weight for my bodybuilding show. It's worth noting that when I hit 355, I was 192, and literally just a couple weeks ago for my show, I was 172, so I'm quite a bit lighter right now. 135 and 185 moved quick, as to be expected. To be honest, this was kind of just trying to get used to the movement of benching again, since I hadn't really benched at all since January, and I hadn't even benched over 300 since late 2024, so it's been a minute. Luckily, 225 felt clean, but when I did 275, I could tell something felt off. I felt like I had plenty of strength despite just going through a bodybuilding prep, but it was my elbows that were starting to give me trouble. This has been kind of a recurring problem for me over the last couple of years, and I've never really done the necessary rehab, and so I literally felt it zap me of some of my pressing power. 295 told the same story, but more apparent. The elbow pain was honestly exponential at that point, and it really left me second guessing as to whether or not I could even hit 3 plates. And so I loaded it on the bar. I gave it my best shot. Yeah, embarrassing, I know. Again, I felt the strength in my chest and triceps was there, but this weight, the elbow pain, had just become too overbearing to ignore and push through. The origin of my elbow pain began back in summer of 2024. I had stupidly given in to peer pressure, and I decided to go ahead and arm wrestle a Starbucks worker who had previously been in construction. I did it without warming up. I ended up winning, but at what cost? Because I ended up popping my elbow, and while it didn't hurt initially, I could tell something was off just in my training a few days later. This led to me taking some time off for heavy presses. Then after a couple months, I started trying to grind on bench again until I actually had elbow pain from just fatigue from pressing so much. And then I had a minor left pec strain at one point, and yeah, I mean, it was really just a mess. I was kind of all over the place in terms of injuries. I never really gave my injuries the proper attention and care that they needed, so that elbow pain kind of grew into something that it really never needed to even get close to. And so here I am for the time being, taking it super seriously. I'm not doing any presses at all right now. I do plan on pretty soon introducing some light presses into the mix, but I'm not extending my elbows beyond that 90-degree mark in anything. So tricep extensions, I always stop right here. I'm applying heat packs, I'm applying Butcher Balm, I'm stretching my triceps. You know, for me, I'm unsure as to whether or not my next kind of feat with lifting will be a second bodybuilding show or getting back into powerlifting and doing a meet. Especially if I'm doing powerlifting, I need my elbows to be okay. So while it sucks having to kind of slow my progress even more on benching, it's worth it. So I'm giving it all the time it needs. So if you're someone who's disciplined in the gym, you're grinding away on your presses, your bench press, I'd highly suggest being proactive about this and taking care of your body, specifically your tendons, because in my case, this is what I'm dealing with. Be proactive about it so that you aren't eventually left suffering like myself with an embarrassing bench PR attempt. I'm obviously not going to be the most credible source as to how to go about taking care of your tendons, but according to my previous PT, tricep stretches help a lot. If you have tight triceps, that is something that can lead to elbow pain. Of course, this is going to apply to every single muscle group. If you don't stretch, you're literally just super tight all the time. You're continuing to build more and more muscle on top of that tight muscle, essentially, and it just leaves you more prone to injury on any given body part. So it's always a good idea to take 10 minutes at the end of every workout and stretch. It's an inconvenience, sure, but it's what you have to do if you want to stay healthy. Other than stretching though, it really does come down to fatigue management in my opinion. If you're on like a 3-month powerlifting block, that's kind of naturally supposed to be built in, you know, because you have RP that'll vary from week to week. But I will say though, especially if you're self-coached, do your best to not overshoot those, because I would consistently overshoot back when I was doing that kind of training, and it didn't go well for me. I ended up popping my hamstring because of the fact I was just so fatigued on squats. If anything, I'd say slightly undershoot. I'd rather leave a little bit of progress on the table than overshoot and then aim trying to get more progress, but then injure myself, because then ultimately that'll just set me back even more. There's heat packs, there's contrast therapy, there's a ton of different options you can do to really try to be optimal about your recovery, especially when it comes to your tendons. If you're someone who will grind on pressing for maybe a few months, but then you'll kind of take a break from it and switch to something else, that's a great form of giving your elbows the necessary rest that they need. If you're someone who consistently presses, then you're gonna have to be more on top of it if your elbows are constantly under that demand of having to do heavy presses. So just do your best to be smart. If you're pressing all the time and you don't really do anything to kind of help alleviate that fatigue and that stress that you're putting on your elbows, then it will eventually catch up to you. Just look at my case, right? 355, now down to, I don't know, somewhere, I got to 95, but probably not much more, right? I don't want you to have to take time off from pressing and progressing in the gym because you weren't being proactive. So even if it's an inconvenience, take the time, recover, and you will thank yourself, especially in the long term.